Good to be here again. I just wanted to show you this before we start. I just wanted to show you this amazing guitar in the flesh. I know I posted about it, but here it is. But check this out. Not plugging it in yet, but this is it's a Fender Jazzmaster, and I absolutely love it. Hope you guys are doing well. This week we've flown all the way from my front room a very special guest who is my lovely wife and ex-manager, Fraser T Smith. And I thought that sometimes there's lots of questions that are managerial based or based around the business. So I think Sarah would be a really good person to answer those questions. And also, Sarah and I have been married we've known each other longer than... Let's bring Sarah into the picture rather than I wanted to do a big reveal, but here we are. Hang on. Get in.
Hello.
Here's a lovely Sarah. We've been married for coming up to 14 years. How long have we known each other?
We've known each other since 2003. We're almost 20 years.
Wow. And
I'm still with you.
When I first met Sarah, I was making the change from guitar player. I was literally met Sarah and then went on a world tour with Craig David, and then I made the decision to become a producer and a songwriter full time, didn't I? That point.
So I met you at a Craig David gig. Do you remember that?
I do, yeah.
And I knew his agent, and it was really boring because he had to go and do loads of meet and greets backstage.
I didn't.
Oh, not you. His agent.
Oh.
And then and it was really nice because then by then this is awkward. Then he introduced you to me, which was the luckiest day and happiest day of your life. And it was really nice because we were like chatting for ages. And then we sort of got together after that. But anyway, then all the stories you tell everyone are that I was a competition winner. I mean, it was like winning a competition, really, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. I was the winner. Sarah's been there from the point where I moved from guitar playing into production, and literally from the very beginning. So from like Craig David, Can't Be Messing Around times on Craig's first album, a little bit after that actually. When I was doing the Kana stuff, you were in the room working when we wrote Typical Me, weren't you? Yeah. So
I wasn't really managing you when you were working with Craig, and I started managing you in 2003. You had been managed before by the brilliant Craig Logan and Jill Paterson. But you guys had parted company in a good way, and you're still really good friends. But you decided that you wanted to have a bit of a change in your dynamic and how you were going to work. And I remember I was working for my friend Mona and doing fashion design, and she was a fashion designer, and I was working with her and for her. And you needed some help with management, so got me to do all your boring things like admin stuff. But then as it went on, you ended up getting me to do more and more. So I was having to do it in my lunch hour and then in my evenings. And I almost got the sack from Mona. No, she didn't. But then we decided that you said, well, why don't you manage me full time? Which was a little bit scary because I'd never done it.
For you or me?
Well, for me. For both. Well, no, this is the thing. You said to me, why don't you come and work with me and be my manager? And I was like, yeah, but I don't have any experience. And you said, well, you're doing it. And, everyone has to start somewhere. And then, so I resigned. And then when I came home and told you I'd resigned from Mona, and I had a really nice job, and she was my friend, and I resigned from her. And you then went, what did you go and do that for? So, which is really scary. And
then you went. So we had some initial productions, and then you were there. Well, obviously there, as my wife, but there for the first number one that I had, Chinchy Strider.
Yeah, yeah. So
the first track that went to number 2, which is the highest any track had been in my life. Take Me Back, Tinchy Strider and Tyre Cruz.
Well, Jill had done a lot of work with you beforehand, and she'd done a lot of groundwork. But I remember when I first started managing you in 2008, it was still a case of just banging on people's doors.
Can I just say
and
that
trying to persuade.
Phil Sales, my new and current manager, has just joined. So just just keep it nice.
It clean. And he's far more experienced than me, I can tell you. No, but ultimately, that's the thing. I was managing you for about 11 years. But there's a lot of people out there who are far more experienced than I am and ever was. So it's really scary to go into something that you don't really know much about. But what I came to realise was that we all have egos and we all want to help each other. So what I quickly realised was that if I had a problem, I just asked other managers or A&R managers and, said, I don't really know this, can you help? And what I've come to realise later in the music business was everyone's still learning. Old school managers who have been in the industry for donkey's years are learning because music's changing all the time, isn't it? So, younger people are coming in, they're having probably a bit more of an understanding of technology, and they'll go to the old school managers to be mentored in some respects, but sometimes, young up and coming managers are kind of a little bit ahead of the game in other respects. So never feel you can't ask.
You need to get in a bit.
What do you mean?
Well, you keep drifting out of the show.
Yeah, because you kept me out of the frame to begin with, and I said,
just giving you the big intro, giving you the big up.
Thank you. And can I just say,
No.
It's much better when I come in because we get beer, rather than your bottle of water that you just clink in front of the camera the whole time.
You bring the vibe to these
Yes,
IG
exactly,
lives. Okay.
exactly.
Yeah, that's true.
Cheers.
So Sarah absolutely smashed it because we were, to be fair, we were struggling, weren't we? Without it sounding like a sob story, but I mean, we were literally kind of living hand to mouth from the beginning.
Mm.
And I'm not going to give some massive sort of life story, but then when you're answering the questions, then I give more context.
Yeah, well, you had changed career path, so you'd gone from working with Craig solely. I mean, you'd obviously played guitar with lots of people like Tony Hadley and Rick Wakeman, but when I met you, you were playing completely with Craig, all his acoustic performances, all his touring, and as you said,
I've cut my hair, by the way, because I just wanted to say in front of everyone, thank you so much for violating the Instagram rules with putting that picture of me with a mullet on your Instagram.
It's not even a mullet. It's more like it's just like this long, greasy, dirty. I would definitely not manage you.
I'll have you know, it's very clean hair.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're a clean man.
It takes a lot to upkeep that sort of level of length.
Can you imagine the knots in that?
It was knots. It was not.
Did you not? What did you have to do when you went swimming with it?
I wasn't swimming that much. I was touring mainly.
Mm. That's even worse.
Sort of
a white studio tan and hairy armpits and that vest.
But I have to say that you absolutely smashed it, and coming in where you did, and then all of a sudden I remember you were saying that you were flying to New York to have meetings, and you were sitting in Craig Cowman's office, who's the head of Atlantic Records, and it's
that went
Don.
well. I nearly blew his speakers, and he wasn't very amused by that because I remember playing him a demo or something. He wanted to hear it, and he gave me the jack, but I hadn't realised that the volume was still up on his what is it, amplifier?
Mm. And this guy, by the way, has the largest vinyl collection in the world. He is an audiophile. I mean, he's a really good friend and a lovely guy. But I mean, his speakers would be, I don't even know how much they'd be. But
they were like the size of this. They were like the size of this room.
Very nice speakers.
Yeah.
And what did you do? You didn't say turn the volume down. You just plugged it straight into your iPhone.
Well, if someone gives you the jack, you just go vroom in your iPhone. I think it was an iPod
So
then.
was it his
actually,
fault?
I would say 6 of one, half dozen of the other. But anyway, I went to put it in, and you know how when you first put the thing in your phone, a jack in the phone, and it goes, and it sort of way
Getting
to
ready
blow.
for
And
that big.
he did this thing. He leapt across the room. No, like grabbed the thing and quickly turned the volume down. I was like, oh, sorry. Anyway, I'll do it again. I never did that again.
No.
But you had changed from playing guitar to suddenly being a writer and producer, which is what you'd really wanted to do, and had learnt a lot on the road with Craig and did some writing with him. But you'd done bits and pieces, but you hadn't ever really committed. And it was a massive decision to stop playing guitar, where you were getting a regular income, to sort of starting from scratch with nothing, with no money. I mean, we were living hand to mouth really for a long time, and it's yeah, it was a bit scary. Luckily, you'd sold some of your gear, so that kind of you invested in
Musical equipment, right, just to clear that up.
You probably would have made more money.
But yeah, so I sold loads of guitars and bought some compressors and spent that, and have to say now in front of you all here, like if it wasn't for Sarah really standing by me, because we had Amber, didn't we, was 2 at the time.
She was 2.5 when we met. Yeah.
So I went, from the transition to being a guitar player, like go on the road but earning a nice income, to not earning any income, and then feeling, obviously, we were both breadwinners, but yeah, that period. But you stuck by me. You respected what I was doing, because you could have said, well, actually, you need to just keep going on tour to bring in the money. But
I think there were times when I did suggest you go and do some sessions.
Well, no, you actually suggested I do some sessions when I got the...
Duran.
You said you weren't going to cut me off this year. That was your New Year's resolution.
What do you mean cut you off? This is a better story than what you're about to say. So,
do you want to tell it?
So when was it? Probably about 2005. And you'd been slogging away at production and writing for 2 years. And you'd met Kano, which was amazing. That was incredible. But you hadn't really had anything away. And... I got an email from someone, I think must have been a manager or someone, I don't know, whoever, but they asked whether you would play with and become the, what was it, guitarist? Lead guitar player for Duran Duran. And being a child of the 70s and 80s, I had posters of John Taylor all over my bedroom wall. So, and Simon Le Bon to an extent, but for me, that was... awesome. So I said, you know what, just do it. And you quite rightly said no.
Yeah.
And I got it.
You were very happy with me for about...
Well, I couldn't understand why. I was like, yeah, but it's Duran Duran. You were never really a Duranie anyway.
No, I think, no.
You were more into that sort of like long hair sort of rock kind of vibe. I was more New Romantics.
Yeah.
But you did play with Tony Hadley.
Yeah, it was different. I just
why is that
different?
That.
Well, I don't know. I preferred that music, to be honest. It was a different time in my life. Like, I was getting into production, so had to keep with the production.
Okay. Anyway, so you turned that down. You stuck to your guns, and I remember my first A&R meeting was with Thomas Hamavici at Mercury, maybe. And I went in, and I was so scared, thinking, so I'd gone with all your show reel, and we just spent 80%.
What was that at that time? It was like a CD or something. I
think it was like a whole big sort of like reel to reel. No, yeah, it was a CD. It's a CD. I can't even remember what was on it. Oh, you worked with a girl who's signed to Sony. She was really good actually, but I can't remember her name. But anyway, I had a few things, and he was lovely. He was so nice, and he made me. It was my first ever meeting, and I soon realised that I spent 80% talking about the weather and sports and everything, and then 20% at the end we chatted about you and his artist, and he said, would Fraser be interested? I would never assume you would be, because you're the one who can make the decision, and I brought the music back with me for you to decide whether you liked it or not.
Did I do it? I can't remember. No.
But so then I had to go back and say thanks but no thanks, and then as a manager, that's the first time you're trying to work out how to be diplomatic and say, oh, sorry, he's really busy at the moment. Actually, why would you... I think you turned very few things down at that point, because it was like, just bring it on. Any session that came your way, you Not that you were desperate, but you.
The thing for me at that point, I think, was, and I would recommend anyone like at the beginning of their careers to just throw yourself in. I think there is a point where, as a producer and a songwriter, you're just like, I just need to write songs. So if the artist, I need to put myself into different situations, and whether it's a remix here or a songwriting session there or whatever I was doing, I was kind of like earn to learn kind of thing. So I would do some of these remixes which I might not do now, but at the time I know I could just learn something from the process.
You were doing a couple of remixes with Craig as well, weren't you, at the time?
I was, yeah.
I can't remember what you...
Blue Cantrell remix.
Blue Cantrell, Breathe.
Not that song, but...
No, but... yes, it was.
Well, no, we used that song, but it wasn't it was the Dre sample. But
okay.
But Sarah was there for a lot of the great times. So you negotiated the deal like on Set Fire to the Rain, and you were there for like a lot of the things that were working in America, and we set up 70 Hertz publishing together. We signed Young Writers, we signed Terrell 169, and we signed Lost Boy and Melee and Javen, and we had started off initially. We had like a T-shirt company together. My Audio Tonic.
My Audio Tonic. The only person who ever bought them was our friend Nick.
Yeah, well,
and he had most of them.
He loved them.
And then we gave them away to people, and we just see them around the place.
And we actually, I mean, call it visionary or call it stupid at the time, but we thought that it would be great to have this website selling
merch.
MP3s.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, did we actually invent streaming?
God. Yeah, we were like, let's do downloads.
Hang on a minute.
God.
Wow. Can we see
We should have seen...
Spotify?
Did you say sausage-fy? Sausage. You had too much beer. Yeah, no. Yeah, that's weird if you think about it. But also, you had an idea then about setting up some kind of production company and the whole sort of setup where you signed artists through to work with you. I mean, those are the beginnings of sort of production company. We didn't do it. You met up with Airman, do you remember?
Yeah, this was a band.
An amazing Danish band who were called Airman, and then now they're not working with us. They're really successful, called Minds of 99, and they're based in Copenhagen. And if you haven't seen them, they're just incredible. And they sing in Danish really most of the time, don't they?
Yeah.
Really, really good.
Should we go on for questions?
Oh yeah.
Well, no, I mean,
that's what you're here for.
The questions will launch. How did you meet and when? How did you decide to? We've answered that, haven't you? To decide to start working together. This is a good one for you. How do I know if a manager is going to give it their all as much as I will?
Well, I guess you don't. I think... Sorry, say that again.
How do I know if a manager is going to give it their all as much as I will?
I don't think you really know. I guess you hope that they will. And that's interesting. Someone once said to me, a very high profile manager who a lot of people who are probably on this will know, but he always said to me, what did he say? If your artist or producer, if as a manager you're working harder and want it more than your artist or writer or producer, then you shouldn't be managing them. They shouldn't be doing what they're doing. And that really stuck with me, because it's not saying that you want a manager who's giving it their all, but ultimately the only person... You could have the best manager in the world, but if you're not delivering, where's it going to come from? You've got to write you've got to have the product, and it's very easy, I think, for writers and producers and artists to blame management for not getting them this, that, and the other.
We've seen that a little bit, haven't we? With just around, not naming any names, but I think that feeling of responsibility, like taking the responsibility for everything, is really important. I mean, I've always been of the opinion that if the stuff coming out the speakers, to speak really purely, if the stuff coming out the speakers is moving you, then it will probably move someone else. And really that whole, because we do get a lot of questions on here about networking and all the business stuff. The bottom line is that if you're your music is hot and it is on fire, then it just has this effect that if things aren't going so well, it's best to look inward rather than look at the people around you. Obviously, if there's glaring kind of things that you think you could fix, like if, you know, big holes in the bucket of water that's just kind of pouring out, then that's really important. But I think at the end of the day, there's only so much that a publisher or a manager can do with an artist, and it's empowering, really, because as artists, the producers and writers and artists and stuff on the chat, then it's within your power. Like, you just have to go back to the drawing board, and it's something that you can do like 24/7. You can just get into the studio or do what you need to do.
But that said, you do need to have that relationship with the manager, and you need to know that they are working for you too. And it can be frustrating at times, feeling you might be feeling that you're giving so much and they're not doing stuff for you, but they're probably doing a lot more than what you think behind the scenes. And the other thing, from a practical point of view, with, you know, how do you know, is maybe, you know, most managers will trial, and, you know, it's why wouldn't you do a few months of a trial to see how you get on, and maybe, you know, have releases and contracts, because ultimately if it's not working, it's not working. And a bad relationship, it's not in anyone's interest to remain in a partnership together. I mean, there's times when I've like, God, what the hell am I doing?
Right. I mean, yeah.
You know what? It's been the best job I've ever had, working with you. But anyway, I think that.
No, but you, to be fair, like, thinking about that, you've written like some times where, you know, to be fair, we can put like the markers in the sand, which are, you know, for me, playing guitar with, well, all the guitar stuff, let's say from production, like Kano's first album, then Tinchy Strider, like, and then 7 number ones, like being in the charts for how, you know, like top 5 for the whole year or whatever, having songs in the top 5. Adele, like Grammys, Ivan Novello's with Dave Stormzy, and you look at it and you think, wow, what an amazing career. And I'm very hugely grateful for all those times. But when you actually, if you were to really look at it, you'd say, yeah, but what was he actually doing between 2012, Set Fire to the Rain, and meeting Stormzy? The answer was like going back to the drawing board and learning from stuff, and releasing a lot of music that wasn't working, and tearing my hair out.
But you're very pragmatic. I've just seen on here, and there's D Dot, by the way, hi. Someone's just put, managing can be like babysitting sometimes, and with all due respect to you, it is, because, you know,
I feel like you're on the fringe of the thing there.
Artists are creatives, and with that there's kind of an interesting temperament that comes with it, and a kind of sensitivity. I was going to say neediness, but that's not fair, but a sensitivity. And a lot of people will feel like they're not being looked after, and you might have a manager who has got a massive roster, and you might be at the bottom of that roster in terms of success, in terms of profile, and you might feel like you're not getting the love. But in a way, you are, in a different way, because that manager will be using their roster as a leverage to get an audience with an A&R manager for you, possibly, you know, and they've got the relationship already. If you had you could have a manager who gives it their all, but they're not connected. So you know, they've given you 100% or 150% of their time, but they're not kind of maybe getting further ahead. What a manager who has a massive roster could have one meeting, one sentence, and could connect. So that's what I have to say. I mean, it could be wrong, and there's lots of managers who might disagree. I will all have things to add.
Here's a good one for you, Sarah. How do you accurately quote for your work, whether that's producing, mixing, etc.?
Ooh, how do you accurately quote for your work? That's a good question. It's really tricky one to answer, because we still don't always get it right, do we? Well, I don't manage you anymore, so
Sarah and I professionally parted ways when
he sacked
2 years ago? I didn't sack you.
Yeah.
Sarah wanted to pursue a career in sculpture. I would say 2 years ago.
Yeah, God,
And
2 years ago now.
You know, I remember feeling like out in the wind for a certain amount of time because you were co-managing me at the time with a brilliant guy, Neil Easterby, who was
Neil's awesome.
Phenomenal guy. But I think that
Oh, and Neil and I worked together because we were very different in how we did things. I'm much more pragmatic. He's great in meetings. I was really... I could do meetings because I'm a social person, but I like to just get on. I'm a bit of a doer. So sometimes managers who are in partnerships or with other managers are good. Sorry, I interrupted you. I know you always tell me off for interrupting.
No, take off for interrupting me.
Sorry, what were you saying?
So yeah, then... going back to the question, how do you accurately quote?
So I'm just thinking about this. So it's really difficult. I always used to... It was very hard because you obviously don't want to undersell yourself, but you don't want to oversell yourself either, because there's nothing worse, I think, than a label paying you a huge amount of money, and if it doesn't work, they'll always kind of think, oh, but A, it didn't really work, that track didn't connect, it fell by the wayside, and we paid him a lot of money. Do we really want to work with him again? So it's a really fine line. The other problem that I used to come across, and sorry to if there's any A&R managers here, but you're building a relationship with an A&R manager, an artist manager, and an artist, and you've got that relationship. You've had that journey with them, but when you come to do the deal, you're dealing with business affairs and lawyers who are brilliant at what they do, but they're not. They haven't been part of that journey or the creative journey. So they don't know the relationship or what's going on. So they'll come back and it's just like, oh, it's this. And you're like, what? And I often actually used to ask them for their budget or get them to email me what they're prepared to pay, because you don't want to go in and go, oh, it's this. And they'll go, oh, yeah, great, because they've kind of understood. You don't want to undersell yourself because they're protecting their artist, you're protecting your client. So I think you've just got to go in with what... You've obviously got costs to consider, you've got your time to consider, but also you've got to establish at what point, you've got to be really honest with yourself and think, at what point in my career am I? Are there 100 other people who are going to do just as good as me and charge less? You don't want to undersell yourself again, but be real. But also consider the artists who you're working with, because some of them don't have budgets. Or have a very low budget, and some will. But also, just because you're working with Adele, don't go and rinse it. Don't go, oh, well, that's this because you're you. Because there is a kind of a real amount that you should be, you can be charging. But I think it's a suck it and see. I think the problem I had sometimes was we did a lot of really good deals for people because Fraser would work with artists when they were developing, and so we'd do deals with business affairs at the label and obviously know that the budget wasn't so high and say, look, we'll reduce it because we want to work, we want to build the relationship, you value the artist, maybe we'll take some higher points and reduce the advance and costs, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I remember one time we did that. And then for some reason you didn't work with that label for maybe 5 or 6 years just because you weren't working with any artists on the label. And then when you did, I went back to put the deal in. And obviously you'd come on a long way from the beginning. You'd worked and had success with a lot of tracks and you'd won awards. Not that the awards matter, but you had success. And I remember going in with your budget to business affairs and they came back and went, yeah, but last time we did the deal, he was X. And I was like, that was 6 years ago and a lot's changed, and we weren't rinsing it for sure. So it's a really tricky one. The advice I'd give is a good lawyer who has a wide roster of artists of differing levels of experience should have a good indication of what labels are paying out that's relative to what you're doing. And if you've got a manager who has a wide roster of artists and writers and producers, again, they should have a very clear idea of what your rate should be. Mm. If you feel good about it, and then
I always think with any deal, that there is a sweet spot where both parties don't just feel good about it, and feel like they would want to work like long term, and that there is usually, if there's some imbalance, then you're going to know it instinctively, right?
Yeah.
Okay, this one for you, Sarah.
What?
Is there?
Are you answering any questions?
Yeah, but this is your time. This is you're the special guest. Is there a benefit if I make my instrumental an audio file before?
So read that again. Is there
a difference or benefit if I make my instrumental an audio file before putting the vocals or drums?
Yeah, I would say I would no. I don't think there is a benefit. If I'm honest, I think I would just record them all and shove it all together.
Oh, sounds a bit lacking in care. That is something that I sometimes do. I think it's depending on the context. So if you've got a track and you have 24 tracks, and let's say you have 8 tracks of drums, just to make it easy, 3/8. So 8 tracks of drums, 8 tracks of instruments, and then 8 tracks of vocals. If you're mixing that, there is something to be said on 2 levels, on an artistic level, but also on a sonic level. There's something to be said of mixing your instrumental together and then having the drums and then the vocal, because it's just something that I look at it that if in 24 tracks each instrument has its kind of bandwidth, so it's divided up into, like, if you were to imagine it was a pie and you're cutting 24, if you bounce the instrumental, then that's only taking like this smaller bandwidth, which could be what you want if you want that kind of Drake rap sound where the instrumental is just bubbling underneath, but really it's about the rap or the vocals and the drums. So there's definitely a way to make things knock a little bit more, but I think also from the creative side, is something quite nice about having that instrumental that you feel like it's a sample, so you can chop it, you can filter it, it's like everything is all together. But obviously what you lack sometimes is the ability to think, when I bounced it, I wish I'd have bounced the synth a little higher or whatever, so you may have to go back and redo that. But it's definitely something creative to do. Can you make a beat live? Let me do that next week, and I'll maybe do it in 2 stages so it doesn't get too long for anyone that's not into seeing me make beats. Why? Well, because there are sort of 2 stages for it. I mean, I can do one quickly on Ableton Live and with some of the synths, or then I could show you the next phase where I'd use more of the live instruments, the drums and stuff. So, but I will do that. What advice would you give to someone aspiring to be a non-performing songwriter?
Do you want to go first on that?
You go first. Ladies first.
Well, I guess it depends. Well, it depends on what level you're at, because I don't know if the person who's asked that question is already a songwriter or wants to be a songwriter. So there's obviously a creative input, isn't there, to sort of know. So I think you should talk about the creative side on being a songwriter, just in case they're not a songwriter already. Is it too late to be a songwriter? Never, I would say.
No, not at all.
In terms of getting out there in the industry, and again, other people might differ, but I've been very fortunate that it's a very different time now. When I was managing you and trying to put you out as a songwriter, you'd have to kind of trawl around with a CD. Now you can send links and promote yourself through going online. But what I would say is get a good lawyer, a music lawyer, and I think a good music lawyer who could represent you would be very well connected and probably could introduce you to a manager and introduce you to a publisher at the point that a publisher is interested in signing you. So getting a couple of people around you who have some connections. A lot of people are kind of I don't know, I've always come across a lot of people who are really worried about getting managers because they're like, oh, but they take 20%. And ultimately, they're only going to take 20% of what you earn. So they're not going to be asking you for your life savings before they've started managing you. And a manager can, you'll be better off getting 80% of everything than 100% of nothing, quite frankly. But I would try and find a good manager who can understand your songwriting levels. I said publisher. They might also, a manager or a lawyer might introduce you to a publisher. And even if the publisher isn't prepared to sign you straight away because they might feel you haven't had any releases or, you're not quite connected yet, they'll certainly be keeping an eye on you. And a lot of publishers will connect you with people to sort of, just to get you in. So I'd say that's really key. The other way of, as a non-performing songwriter, is partnering up with a producer, finding a producer that you have trust in. Because and actually, when you were managed by Jill, she had, and Craig Logan, they had a fantastic roster of other writers and producers. So it must have been quite frustrating for them because, she put you in with some of them and the songwriters who were probably like, oh, God, I have to work with this guy. Who is he? And you've had to do that with other people. You've had writers that you've worked with because you've kind of, not as a favour, it sounds really awful, but you've kind of given opportunities to, or your manager has said, why don't you go in with them? And you might not have done, but it's about relationships, isn't it? So I would say find like-minded people, other writers. Maybe, don't start on your own. Maybe it depends on what you want to do. I mean, you can also pitch. There's, some songwriters only pitch their work. Other songwriters want to go in with an artist and collaborate with an artist in the room. Like, you've always worked better with being in the room with an artist. So I think it's quite an open question, but I think there's different routes that you can go.
Could we just ask this question from my friend Scott, who I haven't seen for a long time?
He's
an amazing artist. Do you believe big artists should be taking cuts from songwriters?
No, I don't.
Blanket no.
They will, and maybe you will end up giving it, but I don't think morally it's right. But it happens in its life, so I don't think it's...
Okay, so...
It depends on whether you want the cut or not.
So let's say I've written a song, and it goes to Beyonce, and someone calls up. Let's go backwards in time, obviously, because you're not managing me now, but let's say this was 10 years ago, and Beyonce's manager calls up and said, we love this song, yeah? And we're at a point where we're like, okay, the mortgage needs paying.
Yeah, but that's not the question. That's not the question.
No.
I'm saying yes, we would do it.
Okay.
But I don't think it's right. It's two different things.
Okay.
Do you think it's right?
Well, I thought about this a lot. I mean, for someone like Beyonce, it depends to me what the interpretation is. Because I think if there's an artistry that's bought where if it's a song that where the vocal has been taken to another level.
Yeah, but
then there is an argument.
That's performing. That's not songwriting.
No, but it's not songwriting. But it's no. You're right. It's not.
It's not songwriting. If an artist did add, I think there's a difference when possibly they add something. It could be some kind of amazing ad lib over the top. It's like I don't know, something that becomes hooky, and is, like an instrumental hook, but a vocal hook, or a lyric that they add in, or something that becomes a very key feature, then I think they should absolutely be entitled to it.
I mean, to be fair, we did have a situation where we'd co-written a song with a really big artist, and the manager wanted the bigger share because he was the artist, and we pushed back on it because I think morally we'd all written the song, and it just felt like that was like a power sort of move for no reason, and we pushed back on it. I mean, they were in the times where we were like, we really need this cut, and we kind of won the battle, which is good, because it wasn't really about the percentage. It's more about the moral kind of standing. So yeah, I
think people would do it. Someone fantastic, Mr. Lex, said about smaller producers probably have to, and I agree with that. And you would, even bigger producers, even at any point, if you're going to get a cut with Beyonce, you're not going to turn it down. But I still feel, unless the artist has made a songwriting difference, whether it's lyrically, melodically, or chord-wise, which probably wouldn't be chords, would it? But then I think they shouldn't really be doing it, but they will, and you will pitch it, and you will take it, won't you? But
yes, if you can, you've got to do what's right.
I don't think it's right.
No, I agree.
Neither does Scott.
I agree. I agree as well. This is a real interesting one here, that is. Hang on. Big shout out to Josh for the text, by the way. Nice one, Josh, as always.
Only because we can't read.
Well, not always. Sometimes it's,
you need to get your glasses
Jasmine. On. Do you think a major turning point is coming in the music industry where songwriters or artists would stop working with streaming platforms because of unfair wages? This is something we talked about the other night.
I think that's hard. It's a similar thing, isn't it? Because it's like the industry and the streaming platforms are greater than the individual writer. But then you've got companies like Hypnosis who are empowering writers by having huge catalogues and
could be
creating a bigger force to leverage with the streaming platforms, possibly.
Yeah, it could well happen, couldn't it? Because there was a thing where Taylor Swift was coming off it, wasn't there? With certain people coming off it, but I think...
But then you have to be at that level to be able to come off it. But
even when you come off it, it's kind of like the subscription service is so powerful, and once you're in that subscription service, I guess the great thing for the streaming services or any subscription service is that you're sort of locked in and you're very unlikely to want to... But then I guess if you look at audio visual, if you look at Netflix, there are, like, we subscribe to Disney for Soul.
Disney?
For Soul.
Did we?
We subscribed to that for one
I
film.
forgot, yeah.
We subscribed to Now TV for Splitting Image, and we watched that and then sort of came off it. So there is a thing that I guess if you... But then, look at Tidal, that obviously all the Rock Nation artists were on that, and it didn't really... Like, they've come back to Spotify, so...
It is really hard for songwriters, but I think the problem is that labels are benefiting massively from the mechanicals and the catalogue streaming. And it's a brilliant mechanism, isn't it? It's a brilliant way of discovering music. But the songwriters do need to be...
looked after.
Yeah. But I don't know, I don't think it's going to change. Because I don't think anyone individually is powerful enough to make a change. It has to be en masse.
I mean, because there is a thing that I think for pure songwriters, we've always been able to make a business through production, and if the songs weren't necessarily connecting, we'd be able to do a remix or do I'd be able to do some additional production or something. But I really feel
it's hard for songwriters
because it's very exposed. It's like if you're...
And as a producer, you can offer to work for free. Like you have in the past, you've said, I'll do this production for free, and if you use it, then pay me.
Yeah.
You've sold yourself in a way.
But we would take
songwriters don't have that.
We were taking on multiple projects, weren't we, to sort of pay the rent.
Well, lots of projects you didn't.
But as a songwriter, how do you do that? How do you? It's like being an actor in a way. It's kind of what's your fallback when if you're not getting, but then you fall into the thing of if you're not getting streaming money as a songwriter, then you're really down to the radio play, which is PRS. So you're really going into every set, and I've seen it, like going into every session with no one wants to write the interesting album track, so everyone's coming in going, we need to nail the single, which is kind of good in a certain way, but it doesn't...
But it's not good for creativity.
It doesn't lead to people coming in just being able to be free and to write incredible music. It's like, no, we have to make this chorus as hooky as we can, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if everyone's having to do that just to... Well, not just, but to pay the rent, it is pretty difficult, isn't it?
Quite homogenised, isn't it?
Yeah. My son graduated from a music production course. His first track was just released by a big label. At what point does he need a manager? Well,
I
actually,
would-
Josh, nothing against your spelling, but at what point does it need a manger? Is it Jesus?
At what point does he need a manger?
Sorry.
At any point, I would say earlier, sooner the better, because as I said earlier, that, you know, you might go through a few managers to find the one that suits you, but a good manager is going to be able to connect you in so many ways that you might not be able to do on your own. And, you know, you might have to you might have to cover management's expenses for flights and things, but a good manager will never charge their writer producer until they're making money. There'll always be a way of being able to recoup that back at some point. You've never had a problem with that, have you? I mean, you've always had managers who've kind of put their trust in you and sort of helped you, and then sort of taken their commission on the back end of it. And so I don't think there's anything to lose. I personally think I'd do it as soon as you've got a manager that you find that A, is interested in you and likes what you do, and B, that you feel
That's
have a
great. You come out
connection
of
with.
college and you get a couple
I mean,
of
amazing.
label. That's
Really good.
That's great.
God, can you imagine if you had that? That would have been really nice.
What should you look out for when looking for a label? I guess this is from an artist perspective.
Artist, yeah. You see, that's hard because I'm not really an artist manager. What would you think? That could be a question that Phil might need to write back on. I guess they've got to believe in you. I think creatively, you've got to feel like there's a connect. They love your music. I think from speaking to artists. Sorry, I'm talking over you again. But having spoken to lots of artists, the biggest problem is that they go in, the labels love their music, and then they sign up and they feel that, okay, so your music was really good, but now we need the hits, and they feel like they've sold out. So I think it's important to find a label that really loves your music and can see where they can take
And
it.
the long-term view, like,
long term.
is not, it sees like the music for what it is, rather than, you know, if you've got a hit, how do we market this quickly? Like really the long-term view, and obviously switched into digital marketing, great marketing, knowing, you know, where they're distributing the music,
Exactly.
their aesthetic, maybe the
Where
the
do they
roster,
see it?
if you feel
Where
like
do
the
they-
roster, there should be sort of added benefits where you feel like either the roster or the people that they're connected with could.
Well, that's a good sign, actually. Look at who their roster is and feel if you feel that you fit in with that roster. You know, it might be that you are better going to a small independent label who get your music more. So look at, you know, are they quite pop leaning? Are they quite R&B leaning?
Manon.
Or sort of...
Manon's a great,
Manon.
great family friend.
She is.
And hopefully one week she'll be on here to give the real mixing tips.
Well, yeah, you can do it. She can maybe
Just
you
join
should
in.
do it. Join in.
No,
she can send an invite. You can accept
I've
her.
broken the deal.
Have
broken
you?
the deal already? Yeah, she's in.
He only asked me to come because after he does all of these things, I'm like, oh, you know, you forgot to say this and you should have said that. And,
It's great. It's
you know.
great. It's great having you on here.
Oh, thanks. I might come every week. I mean, I don't have to say anything. I can just sit and enjoy it.
Here's one for you, Sarah. Any tips to get a good bounce to a track to make it more exciting?
Yeah, every tips to get a good bounce to a track to make it more exciting. Yeah, use the
Shall I answer that?
the master bus.
Good answer. A good bounce to a track to make it more exciting. The interesting thing is that you could look at that two ways. So you could say, like, because people would say that the bounce would be the swing of like a hip hop track, but I feel like the bounce that maybe you're sending out, we're talking about a mix, which again, when we get Manon on here, she will give you the ground rules on that. She's actually giving you advice here. Put some cowbell on it. Well, that's one way of looking at it. I mean, always more cowbell.
Do you have a cowbell?
I don't actually know.
We need to go to Switzerland when
we do.
lockdown so we can get one.
Any tips to get a good bounce to make a track more exciting? I mean, exciting is usually something in the 3 to 4K area. So, there's Dean Piper. Hi, Dean. Great friends on here. It's like hanging
And
out.
he says we look lush.
Any tips to get a good balance? So the brightness, I think, is the thing. Like on my old demos, Craig David always used to say, years ago, he used to say, the thing is, it's great, but it does sound a little bit like you've got a duvet over the speakers. And he was right in that you're getting these sounds. I mean, now like samples are a bit brighter, but at the time you had to like EQ the hell out of things to get them bright. But I would say that you would look at like the individual elements, take out sometimes more than you put in, so take out some of the low mids and the low things that you don't need, add some like super high, add some high mids, so like 3-4K, but make sure it doesn't get too kind of annoying on the ears, because that your ears are very sensitive at that point. And then you can add EQ on the master bus and in any separate bus.
I said the master bus.
Yeah. Well, you know.
God.
Sarah, by the way, has like been very very good. I mean, at times like challenging to be like when we've been A/B-ing stuff, and I was spent the whole day in the I mean, mixing does not come easy to me. It did. It does now, but it didn't used to, did it?
It didn't used to when you had CDs, because they would end up flown across the room. So Fraser always used to come in at the end of the day with, and still does, and say, right, let's A/B a mix. And it would be a blind test. So he would put on the CDs or whatever, and I'd have to, like, he would switch in and A/B it, and I'd be like, which one do you like, A or B, A or B, A or B? And I'd be, oh, the low end is a bit like out, oh, it's a bit tinny. And
I think it's constructive criticism. Is like not.
You were only okay if
tinny.
I
who says that to anybody?
Well, if something's a bit tinny and it's a bit all those like hi-hats and snares and snares, and it'd be like, oh no, there's no low end, you need to bring it up. Anyway, while it was all kind of like, oh, I like A, and A was your mix, it was all good. If I then said I like B, not knowing it was yours, and it was like, you'll go, really? Listen to it again. Really? Listen to it again. No, I still like B. Okay, I'll play it again, just listen to it again. Oh, sorry, I won't swear on Instagram because babies might be on there. And smash the CD on the floor.
That's a bit harsh. But
I mean, you were never physically aggressive, except the CD and the floor.
Well, yeah, I mean...
And I'd be like, look, I'm just being honest. I'm not going to, blow smoke up your arse.
Sarah actually has these amazing... I mean, Sarah is an artist in her own right. Sarah has these amazing ears that can actually tell, like, you had bat ears, don't you? And you have objectivity, which I didn't used to, because I was like so into the mix. And I once bounced Set Fire to the Rain, we bounced it to tape. And I did a A/B. I remember being on holiday with Sarah just before the mix was approved. And I really wanted the mix to be used that was on tape. And I think it was in the end. It was, yeah. We bounced it to tape, and I really wanted so much this thing. And I knew what the sound in my head. So I played Sarah the untaped, the normal digital mix, and then the version that we bounced to tape, and said, I'm not going to say anything about this, but just tell me which one you prefer. And Sarah said, well, I like B, which was the tape one. And I said, but why do you like it? You said, well, it just feels like the low end is warmer, that the vocals kind of
felt like the edges were warmer.
The edges, which
spiky.
is everything that tape does, but without you, with all due respect, like
without the jargon,
without knowing what tape does.
Yeah,
that is completely the.
But also, I am being objective, because it's not. I'm not helping you if I just say, "Oh yes, dear, it's amazing, well done." It's not moving you on, is it? I'm doing it out of love.
Like grandma at that point. Well,
I'm just doing it out of love. Oh, that's an amazing mix. Oh my God, you've nailed it. I'm not going to do that.
Those mixes were, yeah. And the back to the drawing board, we had to go.
But I know you're not. Sorry, just so you know, Fraser never reads these on here because he just can't. Not he can't read it. He can't talk and read at the same time. So Josh sends them through. But I've just seen it says, "What point do you hand your mix over to a mix engineer?" That's quite good. It's just relevant to what you're talking about.
I'd say you've got to take it as far as you can, because then you could kind of get a bit lazy where you'd handed it over and you had no. But I think, yeah, just take it as far as you can. I'm just going to answer. Let's answer one more question.
Yeah, you've got a meeting.
It's literally
He's got a meeting at 7.
Have you ever thought about making your own album featuring other artists? If so, why?
Look behind you. It's back to front though.
Oh,
that says 12 questions.
It's
not,
Future
not...
Utopia. And you did ask, so I made a record called 12 Questions, and it's called it's my band name, my project name is Future Utopia, and it's out.
At the
it's
Future
available.
Utopia on Instagram.
At the Future Utopia, and it features. I could talk about another time.
Simon Armitage,
Idris
Laureate.
Elba. I'll do
Dave?
an easy one. Stormzy.
Lafuanda.
Ruel.
The amazing Arlo Parks.
Mickey Echo.
Koji Radical.
Easy Life.
I've gone blank.
Catherine Fredericks.
You do it. It's your
Catherine
album.
Fredericks. Come on.
Oh, what's the name? Alicia Harris.
Alicia Harris.
Alicia Harris, by the way, we've seen Amanda Gorman. Is Amanda Gorman, isn't it? The youth poet laureate in America who did this most amazing poetry at the inauguration. Well, on Fraser's album, there's an amazing poet called Alicia Harris. You've got to check it out. She's at the beginning and the end of the album. Is she in between it as well? I can't remember.
Beginning and end. Bookend.
Even if you don't listen to the album, but just kind of listen to the beginning and the end to hear her, it's amazing. She's
amazing.
So good.
Oh, Duckworth. Of course.
Duckworth.
Did I
and
say
what's his name?
Duckworth?
Sax. God, I've gone blank.
What?
You know,
Sax. Martin Williams.
no, the amazing artist who plays sax, who I told you to work with. I said he's incredible, and I've gone blank.
Oh, Jelani Blackman.
Jelani Blackman. He's amazing.
Yeah.
Who else? Stormzy.
You said that.
He's a little bit. Did I say? I didn't say that.
I did.
Oh.
You said Dave. I said Stormzy. But thanks so much for watching, guys. We'll be back next week, and
I might come at some point.
yeah. Expect to see
It's just
Sarah
fun.
again.
I like it.
Yeah, it's good vibes.
I kind of feel like, when you're not sort of going out much, it's like don't have a life. So.
And we will save this, by the way, to put up so you guys can listen back if that's your thing.